503-248-0620. You can find me on social media at Chad and Rip City. And coming up at 5:20, we'll eavesdrop in on the conversation I had with Brad Botkin from CBS Sports. Had a chance to talk some hoop with him yesterday, and he's one of my favorites. He does such a great job, and it's like a basketball clinic. But the game tonight's very simple. I want a Game 7. I don't care which one of these teams enter the NBA Finals. I'm going to pull for the Knicks. As painful as it might be to root for New York, I'm going to pull for the Knicks to win the championship because I like their guys. I'm a big fan of Jalen Brunson. I like everything he brings to the table. I like the way he operates. I'm also a big fan of Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. I have to applaud Mike Brown. I thought they were morons for getting rid of Thibodeau to hire Mike Brown. Getting rid of Thibodeau is one thing, but to do it because you want to hire Mike Brown, and it's turned out to work. So I give him credit for the job he's done. I like Karl Anthony Towns. They just have a lot of likable guys. So I'll pull for the Knicks, and I like the way that they're playing right now. They're playing with a certain togetherness, that type of energy. They're well-connected on both ends, and even though they have played and had an easier path than the teams in the Western Conference, they've dominated their competition. Now, Brad brought up a good point. I think a lot of people look at the Knicks, they're like, hey, and I've had this thought too, who have they played? They took out the Sixers, who were dealing with injuries, and Joel Embiid was basically a non-factor. And then they took out the Cavs with James Harden, who's a known choke artist in the postseason. And their coach, Kenny Atkinson's a complete buffoon. And yet the Knicks demolished them in 4 straight games. So they've won 11 straight games. They trailed Atlanta 2-1. And after that, they won 3 straight to close out that series. Back-to-back sweeps of the Sixers and Cavs, 11 straight, and they've dominated. But I thought Brad made a good point. Don't worry about the pathway in terms of how they got there, but think of it like this. They've expended less energy. They haven't been battled and bruised up like the Spurs or the Thunder, and therefore they're going to enter the finals with 8 days of rest. All of their guys, including OG Anunoby, are going to be at 100%, and that's going to put them in a position to play their best basketball. Might they be a little bit rusty to start game 1 of the finals? Yeah. But I love health. I love guys who are 100%, and when you can do that and be like that, it makes all the difference in the world. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So I thought Brad brought up a good point. They're going to be healthy and rested and not banged up like the Spurs or the Thunder, and that's going to give them a chance to perform. I guess what I'm trying to say now is I've come around on the idea and the fact that they're going to be in a position to, make things happen. I didn't think it was possible when the playoffs began, but I now think the Knicks can compete for a championship. And just look at the Thunder and Spurs right now. Spurs have been banged up, De'Aaron Fox. The Thunder have had multiple guys out of their lineup, including A.J. Mitchell and Jalen Williams. So they've been battered and bruised. So you just got to wonder how much is going to be left in the tank for either one of those teams. But whoever enters the finals from the West, they're going to be the favorites to win the championship. No question about it. And they should be. They're the better teams, and they had regular seasons where they won 60-plus games. Now, I don't want to call it a legacy game because I don't believe that. He's too young in his career. But tonight is the first real true test of Victor Wembanyama's young NBA career, meaning his team is facing a 3-2 deficit. Lose the game and your season's over. You're playing at home. You've got a chance to force an all-important Game 7 back in OKC, and you're coming off a game where you did not perform when your team needed you most, and you chose not to speak with reporters after the game. And that's fine. You don't want to talk to the reporters. You're gassed. You're bitter. Whatever the case may be, that's fine. NBA obviously didn't care. They gave him a stern warning, whatever that means. No fine, no nothing. So they played with kid gloves to send the message to Wemby. I don't have a problem with him walking away and not wanting to talk to the media, whatever. But there is a responsibility when you're a superstar to be accountable and answer questions, but he's young and he's learning that process, so whatever. But that means he better show up and kick some butt tonight. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. He better show up and deliver tonight, meaning don't get caught up in the mid-range. Don't let Isaiah Hartenstein get physical with you and push you off your spots. You better get in the paint and dominate down low with lob passes, dunks, and making sure that you make your presence felt. He was basically a non-factor in Game 5, and that can't happen for the Spurs to have a chance to win this series. Victor Wembanyama's got to be the vocal point. They've got to get him the basketball. But most importantly, he's got to be more physical at the point of attack and make sure that he gets to his spots. And don't let Isaiah Hartenstein push you away from the basket. You cannot be a super stud and let Hartenstein dominate you like that. And ever since Mark Daigneault, the coach for the Thunder, has made the adjustments where they put a big body on Victor, they've had much more success. Wembanyama went off for 41 points, 24 boards in Game 1. They made the adjustments, and since then, he really hasn't been the same. He was dominant in Game 4, but in the 3 games the Thunder have won, Wemby has been more relegated to the mid-range game, and that's not his strength. The problem is right now is that because he's young, he's still learning the game. He doesn't have a go-to move or certain tools in the bag that he can lean on based on what the defense is doing. For him to dominate, he needs to get touches in the paint. He needs to live around the rim, and he's got to be aggressive in his mindset. Now, it's also upon the guards to be better with their decision-making. And I thought in Game 5, the young guards for the Spurs, really their inexperience shined through. Ill-advised shots early in the shot clock. Not doing a good job to make sure that Wembanyama's getting touches and opportunities. He had 3 shots with 5:40 remaining in the first half. That simply cannot happen tonight. We also saw them being too aggressive in their defense of the Thunder, especially on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that resulted in 38 free throw attempts. You've got to be better than that, and they weren't. So you've got to make the adjustment to put yourself in a position to be more effective. And that's what I want to see from the Spurs tonight. It's very simple. I think you all know this too. If the Spurs do a good job of getting Wembanyama in a position to have success, where he's dominating down low and he's scoring, and then on the other end he's playing defense and rim protecting, they're going to be fine and they'll win. If they don't, and he's a non-factor or not really a big factor like Game 5, they're going to lose and they'll go home. And for the Thunder in these spots, closing out on the road in Game 6, it hasn't been their strong suit. Now, back home, yeah, it's absolute money. And if the Spurs win tonight, and then we have a Game 7 back in Oklahoma City, I would absolutely favor the Thunder, and I would expect them to win that game. But the Spurs need to put themselves in a position to have a chance, and that's going to come down to Wembanyama. So this goes back to what I was talking about. I don't want to say legacy game, but what I do believe is that this is the first real test. And if you're the best player in the world or one of the best players in the world, if you're a true franchise cornerstone and you've got the size and ability that we haven't seen before in the NBA, you've got to come out and make a statement tonight. And that's what I want to see. That's what I want to know. Can he do it? Will he do it? And will the young guards make better decisions to put them in a position to have success? That's really what it comes down to. 503-248-0620. I love these moments. You get a chance to watch the best against the best, and hopefully the Spurs can force the Game 7, because if we get a Game 7 back in Oklahoma City on Saturday, it's going to be awesome. Those are the type of games that we live for. And I'll get into this. I want to go through a few of my favorite NBA playoff moments. What is your favorite NBA Finals series of all time? I know what mine is. I went through last night, and I was ranking them in my mind. And so I've come up with a couple of different playoff games that were very vital to me as a young NBA fan. I know what my favorite NBA Finals is. I know what the best performance I've ever seen in the NBA Finals is. And so I'll share some of those moments with you on the show today. But I'd love to hear from you. How do you think the game's going to go down tonight? Who do you want to see face the Knicks in the finals? And ultimately, who are you pulling for? You pulling for Oklahoma City? My guess would be no. Are you pulling for Wemby and the Spurs? Or because you're a Blazer fan, you're bitter and you want to see San Antonio go down? Or some Blazer fans are like, hey, I'm pulling for San Antonio now because if they win the championship, I'll feel better about them hammering the Blazers in 5 games in round number 1. Or are you going to pull for New York? And for me, I don't want to see a Western Conference team win the title again. Really don't want to see Oklahoma City go back-to-back, although I have a tendency to think that they're going to. But I just like what the Knicks offer. I like their players. I like their makeup. I like their connectedness. I like the way that they're balling right now. They're fun to watch. And, we're seeing this throughout the playoffs. I love the no-name guys or the role players stepping up to make names for themselves. We're seeing it from Alex Caruso with the Thunder, Landry Shamet on fire for the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. I like some of these role guys that step up to play big-time basketball. A.J. Mitchell for the Thunder. Yeah, man, the Thunder are deep, too. All right, 5. Now, the big join the show. But whatever you want to talk about is fine by me. Now, the big question but whatever you want to talk about is fine by me. Now, the big question is this eat it or is this beat it? It sounds more like Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah. I went with food-themed songs today because you got Isaac in the studio. He's the one who delivers all the food.
That's right. Yeah, he's an Uber Eats guy now.
When people are hungry like a wolf, they're calling Isaac.
All right, I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, little Aerosmith here. This is back from like 1993, the year I graduated. Isaac is in studio with me today hanging out. We got a little journey to go on after the show, so I'm going to have him on a little bit later in the program. You want to reach out, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I would love to hear from you, and I hope you're enjoying your Thursday. The weather is spectacular outside. This morning, I played round number 15 of my golf season, and it was a beautiful morning on the course. Everything was in perfect condition and played in less than 4 hours. I think it was like 3 hours and 25 minutes. That is a perfect morning right there. Compared to the weekend rounds at certain places where you go 5.5 hours. I can't do that. I'm too used to getting the easy flow of morning golf during the week. The 5.5 hour round can put an egg in its shoe and beat it. I don't need that. But today was my best round thus far. First time under 80 this summer. And I've got the big tournament coming up next weekend with Nancy, the couples Chapman out at Willamette Valley Country Club. And I've got one more practice round that I'll do with her this weekend, and then we'll gear up and get ready for the tournament. So I'm looking forward to that, but really enjoying the process. The one thing that's difficult, practicing indoors during Blazer season with the bad weather, it just takes some time to adjust and get ready for, being outdoors. It's not the same thing. And I'm still getting used to the putting. The greens are rolling so true and so quick that I'm still adjusting. Had some good putts today. I would say that was the weakest element of my game today was the putting, but just continue to move forward. Always a challenge is the game of golf. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. The guys that I was talking to this morning were split on whether or not the game tonight would go the Spurs way or the Thunder's way. Yeah, most everyone agrees that they want a Game 7. We love Game 7s. And so I was thinking about this last night, just going back through my mind on some of the different playoff series, different moments in the NBA playoffs that are my favorite. And so I wanted to share some of those with you. And I would love to hear from you, like NBA Finals or playoff games that stand out to you over the course of time. And what's great about YouTube is that now we can access most of the games that you can think of. Then you can go back and watch full-length games. College football, NFL, NBA basketball. I love having access to everything on YouTube. It's the best. In fact, I was communicating with Sean Pendergast, Sean the Calvin Asian from the Jim Rome Show, and he's got his own show down in Houston. I did not know this until 2 nights ago. He was a student, a freshman at Notre Dame, and he was in attendance for the Miami-Notre Dame game, 1-4, back in 1988. And that, to this day, is still the best college football game I've ever seen. Notre Dame won it 31-30. They went on to an unbeaten season and topped West Virginia in the Fiesta Bowl to take the national championship. And I think Miami had won like 27 consecutive games, somewhere in that area going into that game. And Jimmy Johnson had the gonad to go for 2 and get the win, because back then there was no overtime in college football, and a tie would be costly on the record. He went for the win. They didn't get it, and Notre Dame won, and Lou Holtz got his national championship at Notre Dame. That, to this day, is still the best college football game I've ever seen, and I love that you can go on and watch it full length on YouTube and hear Brent Musburger on the call. But that's what's great now is the access that we have to these type of games. So a couple of the NBA Finals that stand out to me. Not my favorite or what I think is the best, but they're close. So I think the 2016 NBA Finals, it's recent. The 7-game thriller between the Cavs and the Warriors. And it was significant because that was the year that the Warriors went 73-9. They had a better regular season record than the 96 Bulls, who won 72 games. The Warriors won 73. They took a 3-1 series lead in the NBA Finals, but a couple of key factors took place. One, Andrew Bogut got hurt, who was their key rim protector and very good at defending in the pick and roll. So he went down in Game 5. And Draymond Green decided to kick LeBron in the bag, and as a result, Draymond got suspended for game number 6 and missed that game. Or did he miss Game 5? I think it was Game 5 that he missed back home in San Francisco. and then Bogut got hurt. They go back to Cleveland for Game 6. The Cavs get the win, and then they ultimately win it in Game 7 on LeBron's block and the big shot by Kyrie Irving. That was a terrific series with big-name stars, and I think the finest of the 4 championships that LeBron has. That was a big-time moment. And it was amazing because I was in the building, the old Coliseum. That place was so loud and so intense, but when Kyrie hit that shot, you heard a few catcalls and grumbles, and it went dead silent because people knew what was going to take place. That was pretty awesome. The 2010 NBA Finals, a 7-game classic between the Lakers and the Celtics, and that was important for Kobe because he was able to go back-to-back. They beat Orlando and then took out Boston in 7 games, and he got his 5th championship, which was his final NBA title. But they took out the Celtics in 7 games. They split the first 2 games. Celtics won 2 of 3 at home in the 2-3-2 format. And then the Lakers took Game 6 and 7 at home. And Game 7 was remarkable because Kobe had a poor shooting night. But that was the game where Ron Artest or Meta World Peace hit the 3 late in the game to give enough cushion for the Lakers to get that win. That was a terrific series, compelling series. And, of course, the Celtics had Rajon Rondo, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Rasheed Wallace, that entire crew with Doc Rivers as their head coach. So that finals, 2010, 2016 are right up there. The 1987 NBA Finals, that was the first year where I was really exposed to the NBA league-wide. Now, when I was living in Denver, I watched a lot of Nugget games, and that's how I got exposed to the NBA because they were on local TV every night. And McNichols Arena was nice because you could go up on game day and buy tickets right there at the box office. And I really enjoyed that, when my dad would take me. The Nuggets had the most exciting brand of basketball back in the 80s under Doug Moe because they used the motion offense. Constant movement, player movement, ball movement, and they had some exciting players like Michael Adams, Fat Lever, who was one of my all-time faves, Alex English, one of the best scorers the league has ever seen. He led the NBA in scoring in the decade of the 80s, which some people find hard to believe, but he did. And so that was a lot of fun. But in 87, that's when I started paying attention to teams outside of Denver. And that's when I was really exposed to the Lakers, the Celtics, the Sixers, and all the best teams in the East and the Western Conference. Houston Rockets back then were great with Hakeem and Ralph Sampson, the Twin Towers. The Western Conference was pretty deep, as was the East. Milwaukee was really good. Detroit, Atlanta with Dominique Wilkins. Dallas with Mark Aguirre, Derek Harper. I mean, there were multiple teams that had big-time stars. The Milwaukee Bucks back in the day with Sidney Moncrief and Paul Pressey, Terry Cummings, Jack Sikma. These teams had, multiple guys who could get the job done. But the 87 Finals was great because that was Bird and Magic. And I loved Larry Bird. I respected Magic. I was not a fan of the Showtime Lakers at all. I hated them because they were so good and they were dominating all the teams I cared about, including the Celtics with Larry. But that 87 Finals was great. The Lakers were the dominant team that year by far. Won the first 2 games. Celtics took Game 3 back home at the Boston Garden, and then Game 4 is an instant classic. The Lakers were down by 2 late in the game after Larry Bird had hit a corner 3. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got fouled, hit the first free throw, missed the second. The ball goes out of bounds. The refs rule it off of Boston. I think it went off L.A., but that gave L.A. a chance. And Magic, with two ticks on the clock, hit a baby sky hook in the lane over Parrish, Bird, and McHale. And he put the Lakers up by 1. And the Celtics put together a great final play, and Bird got a corner shot that would have won the game, but he missed it. And he couldn't believe he got the open look, and he just didn't get it to go down. But the Lakers went on to win that series in 6. And that was when I was like, okay, I don't know much, but I know Larry Bird and Magic Johnson are the real deal. But 1988, I think, is the best finals I've ever watched. It was compelling, it was intense, and it went the full 7 games. Pistons, Lakers. Now, the Lakers were back in there, not a surprise. After they won that finals the previous season against the Celtics, Pat Riley came out and famously guaranteed that they would go back-to-back and win another championship. And so there were pressure on the Lakers based on what Pat Riley had said at the parade before the year began. And so the Lakers were in, and I think the majority of people were surprised that the Celtics were not there. But the Pistons, who had been battling in the playoffs with Joe Dumars and Isaiah, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, James Edwards, that entire crew, they finally figured out the riddle on how to get over on the Boston Celtics, and they did. And they advanced to the finals, so it was kind of a surprising matchup. Detroit won game one. The Lakers took the next two at home, and that first game back in Detroit when they used to play in the Silverdome. And then the Pistons dominated games 4 and 5. So Detroit goes back to L.A. for game 6, up 3-2. And game 6 is one of the best games I've ever seen. The Lakers won the game 103-102. Pistons were up by 3 late in the game, but Byron Scott hit a short jumper. And then Kareem on a phantom foul on Bill Laimbeer on a sky hook, got 2 free throws and sunk them, and they won the game by a point. But what made that game really remarkable was in the third quarter, early in that third, Isaiah Thomas went up for a layup, and when he came down on someone's foot, and he turned his ankle, and he ripped it up. And he was rolling around in agony and a lot of pain. And you could tell he wasn't right, but he continued to play. He put up 25 points in the third quarter. I think he finished the game with 42, but had 25 in the third on a bad ankle. So he's like one-legged out there, and he caught fire and hit everything. And he put Detroit in a position where they probably should have won that game 6. And I still maintain that the Pistons probably had the better team in 88, but Isaiah got hurt, and the Lakers won the series in 7. And the following year in 89, the Lakers probably had the better team when Detroit was in, once again with the rematch, but Magic and Byron both had hamstring injuries and couldn't play in the finals, and the Pistons went on for the sweep to get their first title with the Bad Boys. But in that Game 7, a remarkable comeback late in the game by the Pistons, who cut the deficit to 1 on a Bill Laimbeer 3, and then AC Green hit a bucket with just a few ticks on the clock to put the Lakers up 3. And you've probably seen the highlight before, but the Pistons, Laimbeer threw an inbound pass up around half court. Magic came over and leveled Isaiah, and then the fans stormed the court. So there's no way the officials were going to call a foul, though it was probably a foul. But the fans stormed the court, game over, and the Lakers go back-to-back. But that series was remarkable because Magic and Isaiah were like best friends, and they would kiss right before tip-off of each game. And that was the first time I had seen that. I was like, wait, did they just kiss? I think they just kissed. So Magic and Zeke would kiss before games, and then they would go out there and try to kill one another on the floor. This is back before, kids started playing all these games together, AAU ball growing up. AAU ball, playing at the same high school, playing at the same college. So, it's a lot more friendly in the NBA today than what it used to be. There's a lot more hugs and butt slaps going on today than there was back in the day. But Magic and Isaiah would kiss before final games, and then they would go out there and try to destroy one another, annihilate one another. But I think that 1988 NBA Finals is probably the best. Now, a couple of individual performances that stand out to me. Michael Jordan in Game 1 of the 92 Finals when he hit 6 threes and just annihilated the Blazers in that first half. That was painful to watch, but Michael Jordan was sensational in that final. It was unreal. And that's when you started to realize that MJ was taking over the entire world. So that performance stands out. A couple of playoff games that I remember, the 88 Eastern Conference semifinals. Hawks, Celtics went to 7 games. Boston blew a chance to win the series on their home court in Game 6, and the Celtics were able to get it back to Boston for a Game 7. Larry Bird guaranteed a victory in Game 7. After the Game 6 win, he said, hey, the Hawks had their chance. We're going back to Boston, and we're going to win it. And Bird put up 20 of his 34 points in Game 7, fourth quarter, on 9 of 10 shooting, and it was the ultimate duel between he and Dominique Wilkins. And Brent Musburger was on the call. It's one of the best games I've ever seen, but the duel between Bird and Dominique was legit. But Larry Bird, to guarantee the win and then put up 20 points in the fourth on 9 of 10 shooting was unreal. And I love Dominique Wilkins, super cool dude. Best in-game dunker I've ever seen, but that Game 7 of that series was truly remarkable. One of the other games that stand out to me, 1991 Eastern Conference first round, Pacers and Celtics Game 5. Larry Bird got concussed in the first half, left the game, and the doctors told him that he had a concussion when he was back in the locker room, and he said, I've simply got to go out and try to see if I can help my team. He came back and was unbelievable concussed in the second half of that game, and he finished with 30-plus points, and the Celtics get the win. That game also is on YouTube. And again, you can go back and watch some of these performances, which are just tremendous. Love it. Love those games. And then, of course, I think it was the 2015, was it 2014, 2013? I think it was the 2013 finals, a 7-game classic between the Spurs and Heat. The Spurs should have won that series in 6, but they couldn't make their free throws down the stretch, and that kept Miami in a position to tie the game. Ray Allen with the corner 3 to force overtime. The Heat get that game and go on to win Game 7 and take the series. The Spurs blew it. They had multiple guys step up late that couldn't make a flipping free throw, and what happens? You lose the game. But there you have it. Those are some of the playoff memories that stand out to me. So if you've got any series or games or performances that stand out, but I put the Isaiah Thomas 25 points in the third quarter, the 88 finals Game 6, up against anything. He's out there on one leg, and he's just on a heater. I mean, I don't know what that feels like, but it's got to be pretty intoxicating to have one of your ankles ripped up, and you're so hot that you don't want to come out of the game. And he was hitting everything. Fadeaways over Michael Cooper, getting tripped up and banking in shots. He was doing it on the break. I mean, he had the entire array of shots going down. Isaiah Thomas was one of those streaky guys, and we remember this from the 1990 finals where the Blazers lost to the Pistons in 5 games. Isaiah Thomas, at his peak, would get on these crazy heaters where he could not miss. He was a great player, and one of the few guys, undersized guards, who was the best player on his team to lead his team to a championship. But those teams were tough. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, James Edwards, Vinnie Johnson, the microwave. We got a good look at that here in Portland. I mean, who thought that the Pistons were going to come back to Portland and win all 3 games of that series after the Blazers had taken Game 2 and even up the series at 1? That's a stunning turn of events. I think Joe Dumars lost his father during that series, too. So there you have it. Those are some of the memories I have. 503-248-0620. Let's go out to a Clackamas. Dave is on the phone. Dave, what's on your mind? Welcome to the show. Fire away.
Hey, thanks, Chad. It's always nice talking with you.
Oh, appreciate it.
Yeah, I do remember Isaiah Thomas basically playing with one leg. That was phenomenal. He was hitting every shot. That was just amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
But what I remember, when Bill Walton was still around, and I was just young enough to remember the 77 championship, and he said that the Blazers were the youngest team to ever win a championship. They averaged like 25 years or so. So I'm a little competitive this way, but when OKC won last year, I was hoping they were a little older, and they were. So this year, if they win again, that's fine. I think the Blazers still have the record, but I'm a little nervous about San Antonio. I don't know if they're even younger than the Blazers were back then. So I'm kind of hoping, if they are, that they don't win it, because I would like for the great Bill Walton and 77 Blazers to keep that record going. I mean, that's a record that's a long time ago.
Well, you know what's funny? I've said this before. In my lifetime, there has not been a team that's, come out of nowhere without playoff experience to win a championship. And people always bring up the 77 Blazers, but of course I was 2 years old, so I don't consider that part of my formative basketball years. But I want to go back to that series for a second. Every time someone brings up that series, I love going back to the box score of Game 6. Bill Walton, in the clincher, Dave, he played 42 minutes, had 20 points, 23 rebounds, 7 assists, and 8 blocked shots. How big time is that?
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's phenomenal. That's why he's one of my all-time favorite Blazers. And he brought it every game. You know how they talk about Wembanyama? Yeah, he's younger, but he is getting punked around a little bit. He kind of gets tired at times. Bill Walton, when he was healthy, he just brought it every single game. And I really think if they had stayed healthy, the Blazers could have had a dynasty. But at least we got that championship. And I'll tell you what, Chad, I'm waiting for another championship. I was too young and didn't even know about the parade, and I never got to celebrate down Broadway. If we win another one, I know, isn't that, I was too young. I had to go to school. I didn't even think about the parade. Otherwise, I would have tried to play hooky for the first time. But if the Blazers can pull it off when I'm still alive, I'd be more than happy to celebrate down Broadway with you sometime. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, it would be a dream come true. So I'm looking at the official box score. The officials for that Game 6, Richie Powers and Jake O'Donnell. The official listed attendance, 12,951. And it says here that Bill Walton ties a record for the most defensive rebounds in a playoff game with 20. That's big-time basketball right there. Bobby Gross, 24 points on 12 of 16 shooting. That's pretty good.
Wow. Bobby Gross was an X factor because he had to guard Dr. J, which seems impossible.
Yeah.
But Bobby Gross scored every game. And, Bill Walton was so great. That's the best definition of a player, I believe, when you make your teammates better.
Yeah.
That's what Bill Walton did. He made his teammates better. And Bobby Gross was scoring every game. That really kept us in the game. And, of course, the enforcer, Maurice Lucas, really turned the franchise around, I think, with punking Daryl Dawkins, which Dawkins was acting like a fool in Game 2.
Yes.
But that was just a magical year. And it's just, and, they did break a lot of records because they'd never been in the playoffs ever. Nobody expected them to go all the way. But Bill Walton was lucky. We were lucky enough. He kind of got injured towards the end of the season, but got healthy again for the playoffs and was healthy the whole time. And of course, the next year they were even better at 50 and 10.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, Dave. How good were they the following year before Bill got hurt?
Oh, I tell you, Chad, they were blowing everybody away. They were way better than even the championship team. And I'm really convinced that if Bill Walton had stayed, and he was just entering his prime. Can you imagine if he was healthy the next 5 years, being in his prime? So that,
so they would have gone back to back
next year.
They would have gone back to back had he not gotten hurt.
I think they would have three-peated, to tell you the truth. Geez. And just think, we had Moses Malone too. If we had kept with Moses Malone, just think how, the Blazers probably would have been the first team to win 70 games back then.
Yeah.
But they were in an 0-2 deficit, and back then I think that was a record to come back from an 0-2 deficit, and they won 4 in a row. It just was a magical year. I'm glad I was glad I was old enough as a kid to remember all that, and it was just a fantastic time. And I'm waiting again, hopefully within our lifetimes, Chad. I want to celebrate down Broadway again.
Oh, no, I can't wait, Dave. I look forward to it. I appreciate the phone call. That's Dave in Clackamas. Let's go ahead and go back out to Clackamas. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry wants to chime in. Jerry, I appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. Fire away.
Thanks, Chad. Hey, I was alive and probably, 1977, probably 17, so I'm aging myself. But I will tell you what happened that next year. When Walton went down, so his answer to his question, would they, if he'd stay healthy, they were 50 and 10 when Walton went down. You can take it to the bank. You can think, 50 and 10. Can you imagine that? And the first year when they won the championship, they did pretty much come out of nowhere. They hadn't won anything significant before that. Walton was new, and he was finally had a year healthy, and they needed to put together some players. They got Maurice Lucas.
Yeah.
So we all know the enforcer stories and all that. So then Walton said that he thought that they were in a position they were going to be able to win it the next year. And Lucas basically says, no, we're winning it this year. And anybody who tells me different, I'm going to kick their And so that was the days of the enforcer. And then they just went on. And plus the game before, the series before Western Conference Finals, when that guy was just talking about how well he played in the finals, he was getting numbers like that and playing out of his mind against Kareem.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was And they were so. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. Also, you mentioned something earlier. I'm with you on. Let's hope this goes to 7, and then how can you not like the Knicks? Even though was not a Knicks fan in particular, like you weren't either. But you got Josh Hart. We should never have gotten rid of him, by the way. And then you got Jalen Brunson. You got these guys who played, and you were joking the other day about this. The Cavs guy saying just this ridiculous stuff about, they whatever he said about their lame ass effort. Meanwhile, you got this intense 48-minute defense that the Knicks are playing. So whoever comes out of this series, it's going to have to be ready for that. And the other thing that you had said about Wembanyama better be playing out of his mind. You watch some of these other games, and you're seeing the ball has to move around. They have to change the angles. They have to have another guy, even though Wembanyama's tall and all that, you can't get lulled to sleep by, he's got an advantage, like no one's going to come in and defend him. They have to have someone else box out on the other side, on the weak side, so that he has, a complete, if he's going in, obviously he can take his outside shots too, but anyway, keep up the good work. And one more thing, Chad, you were talking about, this was, I know, recorded. You're talking about smells that were great?
Yeah.
Okay, imagine this. It's cold in the morning. We're camping. Our family go to the restroom, and then we walk by another campsite. We smell wood smoke. Walk to go to the restroom, and then we walk by another campsite. We smell wood smoke, and we smell them cooking bacon in their cast iron skillet.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's a great smell all day long. Hey, Jerry, I appreciate it. That's
and
Jerry.
You're an outdoor guy, so I know you would like that.
Oh, yeah, I do. I love it. Yeah, the old cast iron skillet at the campfire is the best. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I've got to take issue with Travis, who sent me an inappropriate text. We'll get to that next. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, when we come back on the Rip City Drive, more of your phone calls, 503-248-0620. But also, I'm going to dive into this text from Travis Weber. Inappropriate for him to take a shot at me like that. I'll tell you what that's all about. And then we'll eavesdrop into my conversation with Brad Botkin. Western Conference Finals Game 6 coming up from San Antonio at 5:30. The Spurs favored by 3.5. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Antonio, that tip-off scheduled for 5:30. Right now, the Spurs are favored by 3. That tip-off scheduled for 5:30. Right now, the Spurs are favored by 3.5. If OKC wins, they'll get some rest before the finals kickoff on June 3rd. If San Antonio wins, Game 7 will be scheduled Saturday in Oklahoma City. The Board of Governors voted to change the NBA lottery. The new format expands the lottery from 14 to 16 teams, including the 8th seed in each conference playoff picture. It also adds anti-tanking measures where the bottom 3 teams are dealt lesser chances to win number 1, while flattening odds for teams that do not qualify for the postseason or the play-in tournament. Changes will take effect next year. The Mariners are off today. They kick off a weekend set against the Diamondbacks tomorrow night at T-Mobile Park. More of the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing coming at you right now. All right, the Oregon State Beavers will kick off their regional tomorrow down in Eugene against the Washington State Cougars. Pregame at 11:30 and first pitch at 12. It's going to be on your home of the Bees, 1190 KEX. Now, I had mentioned Fat Lever, former Trailblazer, former Nugget, really a fantastic basketball player. He could do a little bit of everything. And outside of Magic in the 80s, Mr. Triple-Double was Fat Lever. He could do a little bit of everything. Loved him when he played for the Nuggets. Alex English, Michael Adams, and just really a good dude and a good basketball player. So I had mentioned him when I was going through some of, my formative years in basketball, some of my favorite playoff series and moments. And when I first started watching basketball, it's when I lived in Colorado, and they showed all the Nugget games on local TV. So that's where I got exposed to the NBA before I started watching the game of the week on CBS and started to take note of the Pistons, the Celtics, the Lakers, and all these other teams. And, that's really where I started to develop my love for basketball. March Madness, NCAA tournament, Nuggets basketball, and then got exposed to the finals with Magic and Bird. And I was like, I need a lot more of this in my life. I mean, Travis reached out to me and said, Fat Lever? Didn't you go to the Fat Lever basketball camp? And obviously he knows the story. He's not being nice to me right now. When I lived in Colorado, I had pleaded and begged my mom and dad to go to a basketball camp. And in Denver, Fat Lever and Calvin Nat, who I knew some of your old timers are familiar with, 2 former Blazers, they held a basketball camp there in Denver. And I was all registered and ready to roll for the basketball camp until my parents decided to move to the Northwest and come out to Portland. And I remember that meeting. It was a family meeting at the dinner table. My mom, my dad, my brother, and I. And they said, what do you guys think about moving to Portland? Now, I'd never been to the Northwest. I'd never been to the city of Portland. The only thing I knew about Portland was a poster I had hanging up in my room called Sultans of Slam. And there was like 6 or 9 different basketball players on there doing dunks. And one of the players on that poster was Clyde Drexler. And so in my young little Chad mind, I was like, well, never been to Portland, but they have Clyde Drexler. It can't be that bad. Let's go. Well, at the time that we did that family vote and made the decision to come out to the Northwest, I did not realize the time frame in which we were going to get on the road to move out to the Northwest and how that was going to conflict with the pre-scheduled basketball clinic and camp that I was going to go to for Fat Lever and Calvin Nat. And when I found out that I wasn't going to be able to go to the camp, I was instantly bitter. And I feel robbed. And I cannot believe that they took that away from my childhood. And I still resent my parents for it. Well, one thing that's interesting about that, I think this is back in 2019 during the playoff series with the Nuggets and Trailblazers in the Western Conference semis that Portland will win in 7 games and then move on to the Western Conference final against the Warriors. Jay Allen, our good buddy Jay Allen, had Fat Lever on the Trailblazers radio network at the time, and he offered up my situation to Fat, and then Fat tried to make me feel better. This is what that sounded like. Big thanks to G.A. Allen for this.
What can you say to my friend Chad Doing? He missed your camp when he was 12 years old. What can you say to cheer him up?
Hey, Chad, this Fat Lever. Man, I'm sorry you missed the basketball camp in Denver, but at the same time, you're probably better off because we didn't teach the kids anything. All they did was come over there, have fun, and get out of the house. So you did the best by staying at home, learning something about basketball, and becoming a producer and working with the radio station, doing an outstanding job. Keep up the good work, Chad.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Thank you. Great to meet you.
Thanks, Fat. I appreciate you. And that honestly did make me feel better to know that Fat Lever addressed me personally. So big thanks to Jay for that. So thank you, Travis. Or I should say no thanks to you. I had to be reminded of that awful memory in my life. Calvin Knapp he's a bad dude. And Fat Lever was cool. That would have been a fun camp to go to. I remember it came on a blue form. I called some phone number and said I need a registration form, and they sent it to me in the mail. That was back when getting stuff in the mail was cool. And I remember it was a blue form, and I filled it all out, and I was ready to rock. And then we moved out to the Northwest. And that is that. And there were a lot of other things I experienced when I got out here. Like, wait a second, the Broncos are not on TV every Sunday, and I'm stuck watching Dave Craig and the Seahawks? Are you flipping kidding me? And this is before the internet or Sunday NFL Ticket. You were relegated to whatever game the local stations were going to show you on CBS and NBC, which meant a lot of Seahawks football. I'm still ticked off about that. Now, the one good thing about the Hawks and Broncos being in the same division, though, is that, my dad and I were able to make the trip up, for many, many consecutive years to watch the Broncos and Seahawks play at the Kingdome. And we saw them play a couple of times at Husky Stadium when they were doing work on the Kingdome. So that was pretty cool. The first trip ever that I went Broncos Seahawks, 1989. It was a big year for the Broncos because they ended up going to the Super Bowl that year, and they got smashed by the 49ers 55-10. But the 89 team's one of my favorite teams ever. And I don't know how we were able to pull this off, but we were freshmen in high school, me and my buddy Jeff Daly. And our parents let us get on the train in Vancouver and ride up to Seattle by ourselves for the day. And his dad had season tickets, and he gave us the tickets to the Bronco game. And we went to the game, and it was awesome. Overtime thriller. Thank you to Norm Johnson for missing a field goal from 40 yards out in overtime, which gave the Broncos a chance to win, and they did. They won it in overtime. 24-21 was the final. That was an awesome game. And the Kingdome, as ugly as it was, and it was ugly, very loud. And they would get the Elway chant going, and it was deafening. But that was a great experience. And the only thing I remember about the ride home were because, again, we were 14. There were a lot of adults who had been drinking throughout the course of the day and at the game and on the train with the little beverage cart. And there was some guy who was all mullered up in the back. And this is back when the Doobie Brothers had that song, Music is the Doctor. Great song. But like every 2 to 3 minutes, all the way back, like over 3 hours, all the way back to Vancouver, this guy would belt out every 2 to 3 minutes, and you could tell he was hammered. 'Cause music is a doctor. Ow! And then it would go silent for a moment, and then about 2 to 3 minutes later, he would bust out with more doobies. That's what I remember from that trip. But I was in a good mood. I didn't care. All I know is that the Broncos won the game in overtime. And then what was the bet? I think, we had agreed to wear, this is back when starter jackets were cool. We each had a starter jacket, Seahawks, Broncos. So my buddy had to wear my Broncos starter jacket to school the next day. And that was priceless. And those are the memories you remember forever. But that was a good experience. Not so much that guy ruining the Doobie Brothers song, but the train ride. And I've done the train ride now a few times over the years for games or going up to Seattle for different events. Isaac and I have taken the train up before. I like the train. Amtrak's not exactly on time like some of the European options I've been on in terms of mass transit, but it's just nice to be able to kick back and chill and not have to worry about traffic. I like that. And over the years, I've done that drive, like I'm sure a lot of you have, up to Seattle and back a billion times. I pretty much have it memorized. The traffic's gotten significantly worse over the years, like not better. But then, of course, the NFL had to screw us, and they decided going into the 2002 season, they were going to, they realigned everything. So they moved the Seahawks to the NFC, and they were in the NFC West. And so they were no longer in the same division, which meant they no longer played each other every year. So I didn't get that awesome opportunity to go up and watch them year after year after year. I was ticked off about that too. It's like, why do you guys have to keep screwing us over like that? I like the divisional matchup. I like those type of rivalries and stuff. So they still have the same teams. What is it? Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers. But it was better when the Seahawks were in there. So I don't know. Just some of my memories. The first Bronco game I ever went to was in the 87 season before we moved to the Northwest. It was a preseason game. Minnesota Vikings, and the Broncos actually lost the game 27-17, if memory serves correct. So I was kind of upset about that, but it was only preseason. But I do remember the quarterbacks that were playing for the Vikings. Tommy Kramer, Wade Wilson, and rookie Rich Gannon, who went on to be a league MVP, I think, with the Raiders. Can you imagine that? Wade Wilson, Tommy Kramer, and Rich Gannon. All those guys. That's pretty awesome. But there you have it, 503-248-0620. I don't know what to think about the game tonight. As soon as Game 5 was over, there was no question in my mind that the Spurs were going to even up the series and we're going to get a Game 7 on Saturday. Do you believe – I think if you ask the average NBA fan, they'll tell you the same thing. Good chance the Spurs win tonight because the NBA wants a Game 7. Now raise your hand if you believe in that conspiracy, that the officiating, that the calls might benefit the Spurs tonight. One thing I can tell you for sure is that if the Thunder get 38 free throws tonight, the Spurs are not going to win. The Spurs, regardless of how bad the officiating is, and it does suck, the aggressor, the Spurs have got to set the tone early in the game so they get the benefit of the doubt and make sure that those numbers at the free throw line are balanced out. But there were 70 free throws put up in Game 5. That's too many. And the free throws and the officiating can really change the outcome of the game. So, again, how they call the game tonight is going to be critical. But it's also up to the Spurs to be smarter in their execution, being more patient with the young guards defensively on Shea. You don't have to bite for every pump fake, you morons. So be patient in your defense so you foul less. Take better care of the basketball. The turnovers have been an issue, and that's not uncommon for a young team. Shot selection is going to be critical, but most importantly, make sure that you go out of your way to get Wemby the ball in a position where he can dominate down low. If they do those things, they should be okay. All right, 503-248-0620. Hanging out in the studio today, my son Isaac is here. I think I'm going to get him to jump on the show coming up at 5. And yesterday, we'll eavesdrop in on that conversation because he had so many great things to share. And I had multiple eavesdrop in on that conversation because he had so many great things to share. And I had multiple people reach out saying thanks for Brad because he was so good. All right, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. Isaac's hanging out in the studio with me today. He just informed me that he's a Bad Bunny fan. I had no idea. But I don't think he's lying. I think he's down with Bad Bunny. Well, you can jump on board 503-248-0620. Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals coming up at 5:30. Spurs, a 3.5-point favorite. And like I said, I don't have a preference on who wins that series. I just want a Game 7. I like drama. I like sports drama. I want a Game 7 to see how that would shake out. Let's go ahead and go out to the phones. This goes back to, I shared some details and some of my favorite playoff memories, playoff series, and different big-time performances over the years. And, of course, the Blazers, and for the people who grew up with that team in 77, that Bill Walton performance in Game 6 was amazing. But the Blazers won 4 straight to take that series. Let's go out and talk with Blake in Portland. Blake, appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. Fire away.
Hi, Chad. Hey, real quick, on your teeth, go to Costco and get a water pick. I just had that same thing happen. Food's getting stuck between your teeth, but your floss won't get it. I did it. My teeth, exactly. It just was perfect.
But, Blake, let me ask you a question about that, because I'm still really bent over that, because for those of you who don't know, I went to the dentist yesterday, and I've never had a better year of hygiene in terms of flossing and brushing and doing all the things that the hygienist was on me about. And they discovered 5 small cavities. But here's my question for you is so I had a checkup 6 months ago. So there's no way that a person could develop 5 cavities in a 6-month stretch. So I'm wondering if they missed some of the small cavities on the last checkup, through the x-rays. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah, probably. So anyway, I want to give you some Blazer insights here.
Is the water pick hard to use? Is the water pick hard to use, or is it easy?
No, it's very, very simple.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, Jack Ramsey, wrote the book about the championship year, and people forget we had Sidney Wicks at the time, and Jack Ramsey sat down with him, and Sidney was going to do this and that, and they shipped him off, and then when they had the expansion graft, Dr. J and George McGinnis, and who was the guy that almost got in a fight with Lucas? Well, anyway, if a friend of mine has a picture that he took, and Bill Walton has the ball in the low post, and everybody else in the picture is moving. It's an incredible picture.
Yeah, and that's the way basketball should be played, where when you don't have the basketball in your hands, you should be moving, and especially with a passer like Bill, because if you're making the right move, he's going to find you.
Yeah, it's a great picture. I wish I'd have kept that. I lost it when I moved. So.
Now, Blake, do you agree with the assessment that if Bill had not gotten hurt, they were going to go back to back because they were that good that year after the championship?
I'm convinced they would have three-peated.
Wow. Yeah, you're the second person that said that today because they were so good.
Yeah, they really were. But, gosh, I had one other thing I wanted to say. Well, anyway, I enjoy your show, and have a good afternoon.
You too, buddy. I appreciate it. All right, so Blake recommends the water pick. But I was thinking about this more last night. I'm still ticked off about that, because I've had the best year in terms of, we're talking about brushing, using the electric toothbrush, flossing constantly. Like everything that she has told me to do for over a year now, I've been on point. So I show up at the dentist yesterday, get my cleaning, and they're like, oh, yeah, we discovered a couple of small cavities. We'll need to schedule appointments so you can come back in. I'm like, well, how many? They're like 5. I'm like, what? And I was like, what do you mean 5? Like 5? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So I almost lost my mind. But then I got to thinking about it. I was like, okay, because what I was concerned about is like, because I automatically think like worst case scenario, like what have I changed? What have I been exposed to that's causing my teeth to literally fall out of my pie hole? And then I had mentioned, I was talking to my dad. He had mentioned this. He's like, no, he goes, you've been eating and doing the same things. He goes, you don't just develop 5 cavities in 6 months since your last checkup. He goes, they probably missed it or didn't see it, and I can't remember if I had x-rays 6 months ago or not, but that's probably what it is. So I have to ask them, like, how did you, like, what? I need explanation. because it was troubling to my mind. So anyways, they wanted to break it up into 2 appointments. I'm like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's just do one. So I'm going to go in for a couple of hours 2 weeks from now and just get all those minor repairs done. And of course, that's going to be a fun little expenditure. Even with insurance, it's like, that's probably another $300 right there. But that's okay. I'll just give me another reason to get hooked up to the nitrous. I'll be good to go. But 5? Hey, what were you guys looking at last time I was in 6 months ago? Like, what's up with that? Anyways, that was very frustrating. And then people made fun of me like, dude, you're from Oklahoma. What do you expect? Your teeth are supposed to fall out, moron. And so I get all the jokes and stuff. I get it. Yeah, I wish, there's a lot of things I wish I could have seen or been around for. And I was 2 and 77. So I don't have the benefit of having been able to remember or watch, the Blazers from back then. Now, I've been able to go back and watch the games, and I've talked to the people who played on those teams, who coached those teams, and I live vicariously through others who are around for that time. But, of course, I wasn't, cognizant of what was going on because of my age. My favorite, documentary is that Fast Break, the movie Fast Break, and I've got a copy of it, and it kind of highlights the Trailblazers playoff run that year when they won the championship. And it does a lot of, behind-the-scenes footage. Maurice Lucas working in the pool. Bill Walton, taking bike rides out at the beach and stuff. So you get some insight on him during that time span. Pretty awesome. But, yeah, I wish I could go back and be able to see those games and be able to remember them. Yeah, to experience them. That's why I want, like I said, I'm not greedy. I just want one championship to experience. One. I don't feel like I'm asking for too much. Just one, that's all. What else is ticking me off? Yeah, UPS. We got a delivery coming, and they come by yesterday. They don't leave it at the door. They come by today, don't leave it at the door. And so now I'm about to lose my mind. I drove down to the UPS holding station. I was like, yeah, I've got a package here. They're like, yeah, we don't have it. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have it? Oh, yeah, it's still with the delivery guy. That stuff drives you crazy, too. Why do they need a signature? Just leave it on the doorstep, for crying out loud. Oh, goodness. 5 cavities, though. I'm glad that I took the extra time to floss morning and night. Really glad I went through all the tedious steps. I've never used the water pick, though, but I'll take his word for it. He says it's great. And my dad loves Costco. He thinks it's a great place. You can get everything all in the same spot. But reach out, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I haven't had a chance to play this yet, but it's pretty awesome. We spent so much time bashing on Kenny Atkinson, and rightfully so, because he had they were facing a comment how, based on expected score, they had won 2 of the 3 games, even though they were facing a 3-0. How, based on expected score, they had won 2 of the 3 games, even though they were facing a 3-0 deficit in the series. Fans do not want to hear that. You're down 3-0. You're going to get swept. They don't want to hear about expected score, coach. But James Harden, delusional as well. He comes from the Kenny Atkinson school of how to explain things. Take a listen to this.
Reflecting on this series, how much better, if they're better, are the Knicks than you guys?
All right, let's just stop it there for a second. If the Knicks are better, how much better are they? Dude, they are better. They swept them out of the playoffs, 4-0. I can guarantee you the Knicks are a better basketball team. What kind of a question is that? How do you even ask that? I mean, are you kidding me?
Reflecting on this series, how much better, if they're better, are the Knicks?
How can you say if? They just won 4 straight games and smoked them. They caused the Cavs to quit in Game 4. I guarantee you they're a better basketball team.
Than you guys.
I mean, I can't even answer that question, honestly. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was 4-0, but I don't think we had a chance as far as our best shot, from a standpoint of the circumstances. Obviously they dominated us 4-0, but I don't know if I can necessarily answer that question just because genuinely I do feel like we are the better team. But, series-wise, it didn't show it. So it's a tough question to answer.
What is that nonsense? Isn't that the idea of the series, is to prove who the better team is? It wasn't like this was a 7-game thriller that came down to a last-second shot by the New York Knicks. The Knicks dominated the series. They came back from 22 down with 7 minutes to go in game 1 to win that one. And then the series, for all intents and purposes, was over. The Knicks annihilated them. What do you mean? I don't know how to answer that. I would have answered that very simply if I was James Harden. Yeah, they're the better team. We got smoked. And I think James Harden had more turnovers and field goals. He played a terrible series. Nothing new. I mean, he's been doing that in the playoffs for a long time. But this is the kind of stuff, when I hear that, I'm like, what are you talking about? Kenny Atkinson with the expected score nonsense. James Harden talking about how I can't really answer that even though we got swept and they dominated us. So on one hand, he admits they got dominated, but on the other hand, he's like, well, I don't know. I still think we're the better team. No, you're not. You're not. We all watched the series. You are not a better team than the New York Knicks. 100% certain on that. Gosh, it's so bad. Delusional. But nothing worse than this. Kenny Atkinson, before Game 4, talking about analytics. Like, this is an all-timer.
Analytically, I think we won the I said 3 out of 3. We're 2 out of 3 in the expected. I don't know if you guys follow.
And you can pretty much guarantee in life now, if someone starts out a sentence analytically, they're about to say something really dumb.
Analytically, I think we won the I said 3 out of 3. We're 2 out of 3 in the expected. I don't know if you guys follow that. There's an expected score, and we won 2 out of the 3. And I know you're looking confused, but I'm not. There is really, if you believe in process and all that, like, man, take that layer. I know I don't throw that on them. I see it for myself. We have this feeling, I have this feeling, then I can go to our analytical table and be like, man, we are, and I think last night it was, the expected score was like 1 point or 2. Us shooting way below expected, them shooting way over. I know no one wants to hear that. I think you guys like hearing it. I know, general public, no one wants to hear that. Everyone's outcome based. And, sure, I get that too.
Well, I hope you do. You're a coach of an NBA team. Outcome determines championships. Outcome determines whether or not you have a job in the future, which somehow you do. The Cavs announced they're going to bring back Kenny Atkinson next year, which is amazing to me. I have no problem with analytics. I have no problem with the fact that Kenny Atkinson can have a feeling and head to the analytic table. But I can guarantee you that you don't want to be saying those type of things when your team's getting their ass kicked in the Eastern Conference Finals, because the fans are not going to be cool with that. They don't want to hear about your analytics, your expected score. All they know is that you're getting smoked by the Knicks. But this kind of stuff's crazy. So you got Coach Atkinson talking about expected score and how they've won 2 of the 3 games, even though they lost all 3. And then James Harden, after getting swept, was asked if they're the better team than the Knicks. He's like, I believe we're the better team. And we just got killed 4 straight games, but I think we're better. No, you're not. Now, that kind of stuff just drives you crazy. It's like, be smarter, people. I don't understand. Just admit it. Be like, hey, we did not get the job done. I did not play well enough. I had more turnovers than field goals. And if you're honest in the assessment, at least people will be a little more forgiving, I would hope. At least Donovan Mitchell got it right. They got swept. And I think he said the exact quote was, that's ass.
No doubt that this group can get there. I've said that all year. I think the biggest thing is you just use it as a learning lesson. It's a tough learning lesson. But now we know, right? I mean, that's not how I like to say things, but you know what I mean? We know. Like, you know what I mean? And this team that we just faced had to go through this. Maybe not this way, right? But they've been together, they've been a core group and had to go through this tough experience. So it's our turn. And I'm sorry for the city of Cleveland for it to be like this in a sweep. Like, that's ass. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I told y'all last year, and I'll tell y'all again, we'll be back, and we'll be ready, and we'll be hungry, and we'll be locked in. But yeah.
Yeah, so at least Donovan Mitchell was a little less delusional than, Kenny Atkinson or James Harden. His assessment was correct. That performance was ass. It's plain and simple. Now, for Victor Wembanyama, he made the choice after Game 5 not to speak with reporters. I don't have a big issue with that. I get it, man. You just got hammered in Game 5. You're bitter. You've got to bounce back and play better. You're the franchise player. You didn't get the job done. But he better come out and get the job done tonight. And if for some reason they lose, he better make sure he speaks to reporters. When you're that guy and you're a big-time superstar, you can't just walk away. You've got to set the example. You got to be accountable. You got to answer the tough questions. That's part of the process, whether you like it or not. And as I mentioned before, it's why I used to have a problem with Bryson DeChambeau. He was the one that was whining about, cameras being on him when he's in the middle of a bad round. It's like, no, you can't have it both ways. If you're a pro athlete, you got to answer questions when everything's going well. And we all know you enjoy your trophies and all the accolades when things are going the way you want them to go. But the key to showing that type of leadership is making sure that you answer the tough questions when things go sideways, when you don't play your best, when you don't get the win. And how do you face that? You've got to set the proper example. And he'll learn. And I think Victor Wembanyama, very competitive. I like his desire to win. He wants to be great, so he'll get there. But, this is all part of having a young basketball team. He probably should have just answered questions. I get it, but you got to make sure that there's a way you handle your business if you're Victor Wembanyama. He's a superstar. Much like quarterbacks in the NFL, whether they like it or not, they are representing a massive brand. They're basically a CEO of a Fortune 500 company as quarterback of an NFL team. So you've got to be the first one to show up to get to work. You've got to be the last one to leave. You've got to be really focused on the process. You got to put in the study time. You've got to look a certain way. You've got to wear the suit after the game. You've got to just go through the details and make sure that you carry yourself in the most professional manner possible. Because whether you like it or not, that's your role. And for Victor Wembanyama, he is the face not just of the San Antonio Spurs, but of the future of the NBA. That's why the league went soft on him. There have been guys who have been fined heavily for not speaking to reporters after a game before. And Wembanyama got a stern warning. And that's the NBA showing a little, favoritism, just being soft with Wemby because he's such a big-name star. If Dylan Brooks does that, he's going to get fined. When Wemby does it, it's like, oh, Wemby, you got to talk to the reporters. But that's Adam Silver for you. The commissioner is a very soft individual when it comes to disciplining the players when they get out of line. David Stern did not have that problem. He instituted a dress code for guys after games. Adam Silver would never try to do that. He's too much. He's kind of a player's commissioner. And, same thing as a player's coach. Anytime you hear that, it's usually red flags because that means the guys like him because he's easy on them. 503-248-0620. Isaac will join me coming up at 5. We'll eavesdrop in on the conversation with Brad Bakken at 5:20. Spurs and Thunder coming up from San Antonio at 5:30. You got the Rip City Drive. Federal prosecutors have alleged Terry Rozier accepted a bribe in order to tank. Federal prosecutors have alleged Terry Rozier accepted a bribe in order to tank his performance and pull himself out with a fake lower injury in a 2023 Charlotte Hornets game. According to the indictment filed by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York on Thursday, Rozier allegedly worked with a betting group and told co-defendant De Niro Laster that he planned to sit out of the Hornets game on March 23rd of 2023 against the Pelicans because of a lower leg injury. Rozier intended to use a leg injury sustained late in the 22-23 season as justification for withdrawing from the game in exchange for a $100,000 bribe. From the indictment, Laster passed the information along to several bettors who proceeded to place more than $258,000 worth of wagers on the under of Rozier's statistical props. Rozier played a little over 9 minutes before exiting the game. He recorded 5 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, which allowed most of the wagers to cash. Eventually, the veteran guard agreed to lower the alleged bribe to $70,000 after his 4 rebounds caused some bettors to lose their wagers. Marv's Fairley had 2 charges tied to the NBA gambling investigation and stated that he paid an NBA player to intentionally limit his performance. Prosecutors subsequently identified that player as Rozier. Jim Trusty, an attorney serving for Rozier, denied the claims and maintained the guard's innocence. Quote, "There are some desperate men in this case with terrible criminal records and tons of exposure, and they know what to say to please these prosecutors." Following the initial arrest by the FBI in October, Rozier appeared in federal court and formally entered a plea of not guilty to the original charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The Heat waived Rozier last April after he was placed on administrative leave following his arrest. And, of course, that was the same investigation where Chauncey Billups was taken out after Game 1 of the Trailblazers season this year. And that's why you got to wonder, and I can't wait to see what happens, will Chauncey continue to maintain his innocence? Is he going to be willing to go to trial to prove that? Or through negotiations, will he take a deal? That is what's going to be fascinating. And, of course, if he chooses to go to trial, you got to wonder what kind of stuff would come out. I mean, I like Chauncey, so I hope that he's innocent and that he'll be proven not guilty of all of the allegations. We'll see how it shakes out. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. And the Trailblazers continue their coach search. Someone asked me yesterday, do I think that the Blazers will have their coach in place by the draft? I would think so. I don't know when it's going to end, but I do think it'll be done by the draft. I mean, that's a time frame in which you'd want to have your new coach in place, whether it's Tiago Splitter or Jeff Van Gundy or whoever it ends up, being, because that's going to be right around the time where teams can make deals. Where you can make deals, where trades can become a part of it. You're going to want to have your coach on board so you can, get some of his insight on the roster that you're trying to piece together. And then the question is, with new owner Tom Dundon, because he's new, is he going to want to make a big splash? And will the Blazers be aggressive in their approach? Or will he, keep it status quo? If there's not, really that big difference maker of a deal, will he continue to move forward and develop the young guys, the young core with internal development? I mean, he's said time and time again that if it makes sense and the deal is there, he'll be aggressive. And I'm okay with that. I have no problems with someone that wants to take a big swing. Even if it doesn't work out, at least you know that their heart was in the right place. They're trying to make something happen so you can put themselves in a position to compete. The problem is in the Western Conference now, the competition is so fierce that you got to be very selective on what you're going to do. And if you're going to sacrifice future assets, you better make sure whatever you're bringing in is going to put you in a position to compete with Oklahoma City and San Antonio, because those two teams are not going anywhere. And whether you're the Blazers, the Lakers, the Rockets, or any other team, in that middling ground, the Nuggets, you have to ask yourself, what are we going to do to get ourselves to that level? because it would appear right now that the Thunder and Spurs are going to be back in this same position again next year, competing for conference supremacy. We shall see. Again, the Oregon State Beavers baseball team's in action tomorrow. They're going to kick off the regional down in Eugene. They take on Washington State. Previous to both that. What I would like to see there is pretty obvious. Get the Ducks and Beavs to both win. What I would like to see there is pretty obvious. Get the Ducks and Beavs to both win, and then you get the Civil War matchup. That would be fun. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to come back. My son is with me today. He's going to join me next on the radio show. We'll get the latest from Isaac. Then we'll eavesdrop in on the conversation with Brad Botkin. And I'll recap before the end of the show some of my favorite finals memories, which I think we all have. Some of those games and moments that stand out. 503-248-0620. About 40 minutes away from tip-off with the Spurs and the Thunder from San Antonio. Will there be a Game 7 on Saturday? All right, you got the Rip City Drive on your home, Blazers, Rip City Radio 620.